Next witness for the Commonwealth.
Commonwealth calls Maureen Harnett.
Follow me, ma'am.
Solemnly swear the evidence you give to the court and jury in the case now here to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you.
Yes, I do.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You can sit or stand wherever you're comfortable. Just please keep your voice up, okay?
Yes.
Whenever you're ready, Mr. Brennan.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury and offer the spelling of your last name?
My name is Maureen Harnett, Hartnett.
Could you tell us where you presently work?
I work at the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory.
Before you began working at the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory, did you receive any education, any further schooling after high school?
Yes, I did.
Could you share that with us?
I have a bachelor's degree in biology from Bridgewater State University and a master's degree in forensic science from the University of New Haven.
After you graduated with your master's, did you begin working at the crime laboratory or did you work somewhere else before?
I began working at the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory.
How long have you worked at the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory for?
I've worked there in total approximately 9 years.
Can you give us a basic understanding of how the crime laboratory you work at is broken down, the different departments and what you do?
There are various units within the laboratory. There is the criminalistics unit, which is the unit I work for, the DNA unit, the Office of Alcohol Testing, the Arson and Trace unit, and each of those units is comprised of civilian workers, and there's also portions of the laboratory that are made up of sworn or troopers that work for Crime Scene Services section as well as the Firearms Identification section.
Would you consider your role a civilian worker or are you a Massachusetts State Police trooper?
I'm a civilian worker.
You mentioned that one of the departments that you work in is the criminalist unit.
The criminalistics unit.
Could you give us a little more detail about what the unit does?
In the criminalistics unit, we examine items of evidence for the possible presence of biological fluids. We conduct trace identification, damage analysis, as well as gunshot residue collections on evidence.
Do different employees do different things in that unit, or do all the employees, are they trained to conduct all of those different types of testing?
There are specific types of analysis that only certain members of the unit will conduct based on the fact that those types of analysis are not requested very often.
Is the unit broken down by level of experience? Are there different roles within the unit based on experience?
Yes, there are.
Could you explain that, how it's broken down, the structure of it for us?
Generally, a training analyst will be a forensic scientist 1, which means they're in training and they're not performing any type of independent casework. Once an analyst is authorized to perform independent casework, they are then a forensic scientist 2, and that above them would be their supervisors, which are forensic scientists 3, and that is specific to the unit. And then as the chain of command goes up, there are additional levels as well.
Do you have a particular level that you've achieved?
Currently, I'm a forensic scientist 2 in the criminalistics unit and crime scene response unit.
In addition to your education and your master's degree, do you receive any specific training when you enter the unit?
Yes, every analyst will receive generally the same training when they enter the unit. It is written in our protocol, so it is standardized, and that is completed once they enter the unit. It takes approximately 9 to 12 months to complete that training.
Is there any ongoing training involved when you work in the criminals unit?
Yes, as a part of our accreditation, we also receive ongoing education yearly.
You mentioned accreditation. Can you briefly tell the jury what that means as it relates to the unit and the lab?
Accreditation is a voluntary quality assurance program that the laboratory is a part of, and basically their role is to ensure that our protocols, our procedures, our equipment, and our personnel are held to a certain level based in the scientific community.
In your role, do you do all of your testing at the office or in the lab?
As part of the crime scene response unit, I will respond to crime scenes, and I will perform some testing and collection at crime scenes as well.
How long have you been involved in the crime scene response unit?
I've been involved with the crime scene response unit the same amount of time I've been in the criminalistics unit, which is approximately a total of 9 years.
As part of crime scene response, do you actively go to an ongoing developing scene, or do you arrive somewhere after the event?
It depends on the circumstances. Oftentimes we are called out to a scene directly after the incident takes place. There are times when we also will examine additional items or additional scenes after the fact.
How many scenes have you responded to as far as crime scene response where you were the person who was in charge?
I would say approximately 300.
When you are asked to or assigned to go to a scene, a crime scene, whether it's active or whether it's later in time, do you make an assessment when you get there, or is there a plan developed before you leave your office and get to the scene?
I'm sorry, can you be more specific?
Sure. How do you decide what you're going to do before you get there?
Generally, when I arrive on scene, I get a brief description of what they think may have occurred. Of course. I will take an overall sketch and diagram of the scene, and I'll also take some notes of the scene before I perform any type of testing or collection.
When you arrive at a scene and you start engaging in an analysis and determine whether you want to do testing, are you allowed to use your own independent judgment?
Yes, I use my training and experience to determine what items I would like to test and what items I would like to collect.
Is there ever any input by whatever law enforcement team or officer is at the response scene?
Yes, there is.
You mentioned that you've been to a number of crime scene responses. I want to ask you specifically about a response on February 2nd, 2022. Do you remember that?
May I check the date on that?
With the court's permission, please.
Yes.
Thank you. So I responded to a crime scene on February 1st of 2022.
My apologies. Where did you go on February 1st, 2022?
I was dispatched to the Canton police station in their garage area.
When you went to the Canton Police Department, did anybody else from your lab go with you?
There was a crime scene services trooper that also responded at the same time, but there was no additional crime scene responder from my unit that responded.
Did you arrive at the Canton Police Department?
Yes, I did.
Is there a garage that you were directed to?
Yes, I was.
When you arrived at the garage, which sometimes may be referred to as a Sally Port area, were there any other people there when you arrived?
There were Massachusetts State Police troopers as well as some Canton police officers.
Did you know who they were?
I did know who the Massachusetts State Police trooper was, yes.
Okay. Was Michael Proctor there?
Yes, he was.
Was Trooper Dunn there?
Yes, he was.
Was Trooper Clark there?
Yes.
You mentioned Canton Police Department officers. Do you know Lieutenant Gallagher?
Yes, I did have an interaction with Lieutenant Gallagher as well.
When you got there, did you have a chance to look at an item?
Yes.
Tell us what your focus was on. What type of item?
I was asked to examine a black Lexus SUV.
And was there a black Lexus SUV?
Yes.
As you were observing and making, analyzing the item, did you see whether anybody was taking photographs?
Yes.
When there's a person taking photographs, do you ever have any input or direct them, or do they do that totally independent of you?
After they're done doing what they're required to do, I will ask them to take specific photographs because I do not perform that function at a crime scene.
When you first arrived, did you have a chance to walk around the vehicle?
Yes, I did.
Did you observe the vehicle from standing behind it, looking at the back of it?
Yes, I did.
May I approach, Your Honor? Thank you.
Yes.
Do you need to see these?
No, thank you, Mr. Bennett.
I'm handing you a document. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what is it?
This is the rear of the black Lexus SUV.
Does that photograph, does it appear to be substantially accurate to what you saw that day?
Yes, it is.
Is it a fair and accurate depiction of what you saw?
Yes.
May I approach again?
Yes.
I would move this into evidence, please.
Okay.
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 138.
With the court's permission, I'd like to show P-145.
Okay.
Ms. Harnett, is that what you saw when you arrived?
Yes, it is.
Did anything stand out to you when you first looked at the back of that Lexus?
I noticed there was some damage to the rear passenger area of the vehicle.
You can take that down, please. Did you have a chance to walk around and look at the vehicle from the driver's side of the vehicle, the left side?
Yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett.
They were showing you a photograph. Do you recognize what's in that photograph?
Yes.
What is it?
This is the driver's side of the Lexus.
Did the Lexus appear to you the same as it does in that photograph?
Yes.
Is that a fair and accurate depiction?
Yes.
All right, move this into evidence, please.
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Exhibit 139.
With the court's permission, I'd ask to show the jury P-144.
Okay.
Could you describe what you saw, ma'am?
Yes, so this is the driver's side of the black Lexus.
Thank you. You can take that down. Did you get a closer look from the right side of the Lexus to pay detail or attention to what you described from the back view that stood out to you?
Are you referring to the damaged area?
I am.
Yes, so I did take notes of that area and as well as had additional photographs taken of that area.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm showing you a photograph. Do you recognize it?
Yes.
What is it?
This is a close-up photograph of the rear passenger side tail light area.
Does that photo depict what you saw that day?
Yes, it does.
Is it a fair and accurate depiction?
Yes.
With the court's permission, I'd like to use that as an exhibit.
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Exhibit 140.
May I show it to the jury, Your Honor?
Yes.
P-161, please. Could you describe what you saw?
Yes, that is the rear passenger tail light of the vehicle.
Is that how it appeared when you first walked in that day?
Yes, it is.
You can take that down. Thank you. When you examine an item like a car, do you take any type of efforts to protect from contamination?
Yes.
What do you do?
Before processing or touching any item of evidence, I'll put on gloves. I use disposable instruments whenever possible, or if I need to use reusable instruments, I will spray them with a 10% bleach solution prior to use. I also change gloves often while I'm examining a vehicle and keep my notes and my pens that I'm writing my notes with. I don't put on gloves when I touch those, and then when I go back to examining the vehicle, I will then re-put on gloves to protect the evidence.
If you see something of note, something that stands out to you, do you have any way of marking the item?
Yes, I take diagrams at the scene and note on my diagrams anything of note. And as I had said, if there's anything that I also want close-up photographs, then I will request the crime scene services trooper who's assigned to crime scene to take those photographs.
Do you ever put any type of markers on the item itself?
Yes, generally I will mark the items with either a letter or a number so that I'm able to refer back to them both in my notes, and I'm able to refer to them when I look at the photos.
When you mark different items or observations that you make, do you give a specific number to each item for to memorialize it?
Yes, I either use a lettering system or a numbering system.
And how do you memorialize it? Do you put it in writing?
Yes.
What do you do?
On my diagram, I will refer to something, for example, as letter A, and then I'll also mark that item using a marker on the item of evidence with the same letter so that I can connect and associate the photograph with my notes and anything that I collect as well.
In addition to the broken taillight that we just looked at, did you make observation of any other things? And I'm just asking generally, not asking you to specify.
Yes.
Were there other things that stood out to you?
Yes.
Did you take any swabs, any fake swabs from as far as trace for blood?
I screened for blood on various areas of the undercarriage of the vehicle.
And what was the results?
Those were negative.
What does negative mean?
It means that there was no blood present in that area, or if there was, it was below the level of detection of our test.
Did you make any observations where you saw items or marks of interest?
Yes.
I want to ask you about any observations you made of the back bumper. Was there anything significant that you saw relative to the back bumper of that vehicle?
Yes.
And share with us what you saw.
There were scratches on the bumper as well as apparent pieces of glass on the bumper.
When you saw what you believe to be pieces of glass on the back bumper, what is the process you follow?
I gave those an identifying letter. I noted those items in my diagram, and then I eventually collected those items.
How do you collect them?
I would have used either disposable tweezers or tweezers that were cleaned with a 10% bleach solution.
After you collect the items, for example, glass on the back bumper, what do you do with that?
In that moment or later on?
Take us through from the moment you have it till the end.
So I would put those pieces of glass into a glassine envelope, which are then packaged in a larger manila envelope. They are sealed and dated and initialed with my dates and initials. Eventually, when I return to the lab, those pieces are given an item number and then secured in our cold room.
Is each piece of evidence given a separate item number?
Yes.
As far as the entire case, your entire response, not the separate pieces of evidence you may find, is it assigned a particular number or a case number?
Yes, each case will get a larger case number, and then each item within that case gets an individual item number, so that item can be tracked throughout the lab.
Do you remember from your memory what the case number of this investigation as far as your response was?
Yes.
Could you share that with us?
The case number assigned to this in the laboratory information system was 22-2184.
I want to go back to the glass in the bumper. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm showing you a photograph. Do you recognize what's in that photograph?
Yes, I do.
Is that a fair and accurate depiction of what you saw that day?
Yes.
And could you generally describe what you see?
This is a close-up photograph of the apparent glass on the bumper of the vehicle.
Can we listen to evidence, please?
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 141.
Court permission, I'd like to show P167 to the jury.
Okay.
There are 2 pointers in front of you. Would you mind pointing out for the jury what stood out to you? And Ms. Gilman, could we get a little bit of a close-up on that bumper, please?
So I can see one of the, it's a little difficult to see, but I do see one of the larger pieces of apparent glass right here. Would it be better if I use this one?
Could you? Do you mind?
So this piece here is a larger apparent piece of glass. I think that was the largest one that I saw.
And those 2 white stickers, could you tell us what those are?
This sticker, this sticker here is marking where the apparent pieces of glass are.
Is there another sticker above, or is that just
I'm
a
not
different
sure. If you could close up, I'm not sure what that is. Yes, so that is another sticker, and next to that sticker are additional pieces of glass.
Those items to the right of that picture, are those pieces of glass?
Yes, I would say that's an apparent piece of glass here, and this one.
And could we just go down to the bottom part again, please? Thank you, Ms. Gilman. You can take that down. Did you collect what appeared to be items of glass?
Yes, I did.
Were they assigned a particular number?
Yes.
Do you know that number offhand?
I would have to refer to my notes.
With the court's permission?
Yes.
Thank you.
Please.
Those items were given the item number 3-3.
Did you focus on the right rear side of the vehicle beyond the broken taillight?
Yes.
Did you notice any damage, any scratches to the right quarter panel or the right side of that Lexus?
Yes, I did. I noticed some scratches as well as a dent in the rear door in that same area.
Let's start with the scratches first. When you notice scratches, is there a way you marked them?
Yes, I would have given them a letter.
And did you do that?
Yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Showing you a photograph. Do you recognize that photograph?
Yes, I do.
Do you recognize what's in that photograph?
Yes.
What does it depict?
It is a close-up photograph of one of the scratches on the right rear area of the vehicle.
Is that a fair and accurate representation of what you saw that day?
Yes.
All right, move this into evidence, please.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right.
Exhibit 142.
With the court's permission, I'd like to show the jury P-172.
Okay.
Could we close up just a little more, Ms. Gilman? Thank you. Starting at the bottom, what is that, ma'am?
That is a close-up of the scratches that I noted in that area.
And could you zoom out again, please, Ms. Gilman? Is that on the back bumper or the right quarter panel?
I believe it's on the right bumper. It's a little difficult to make out in that photo.
Could you zoom in again and move up just a little higher, Ms. Gilman? Thank you. You have another sticker on the top?
Yes, I do.
Do you know what that is?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
That is an apparent hair that I noted in that area.
So that doesn't designate a scratch. That's something entirely separate and different.
That's something different, correct?
We'll get to that later. I just wanted to point out that it's not a scratch. Now, you mentioned that you saw a scratch. Was it a singular scratch or a number of scratches? Could you zoom in, please, Ms. Gilman?
It was a couple of scratches.
Is there a number you designate if it's not a physical item, if it's something like a scratch, or the designations just for actual physical items?
I use the designation for both observations as well as physical items.
Would there be a number for the scratches?
Yes. Well, there's a letter, yes.
Do you know what that letter is?
Yes, I believe it's D.
D. Okay, thank you. Take that down, please, Ms. Gilman. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm showing you another photograph. Do you recognize what's in that photograph?
Yes.
What is it?
That is damage that I noted on the rear trunk door of the vehicle.
Is that a fair and accurate depiction of what you saw?
Yes.
When you say damage, what type of damage did you notice?
There was some scratches as well as a dent.
I'd like to move this into evidence.
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 143.
With the court's permission, I'd like to show the jury P-176. Could we zoom in just a little bit more, please? You told us that you saw both dent and scratches. Starting with the scratches with the pointer on the TV to your right, could you show us where you saw further scratches?
So the scratches are up above, and then down here there's chipped paint and a dent.
And where is the dent in relation to the scratches?
Just below it.
Could we zoom in a little more if we could, Ms. Gilman, please? Can you see in this photograph the dent that you saw?
Yes, I was referring to this area here as a dent in my observations.
Thank you. You can take that down, please. You mentioned a hair. I'm going to ask you some questions. How many pieces of hair did you find attached to that Lexus?
I found one apparent piece of hair on the Lexus.
Was there a designation number for the hair that you found?
Yes.
Do you remember what that number is?
I used the letter A for that particular item.
Did you say letter A, ma'am?
Yes, correct.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm going to show you two photographs. You take a look at the first photograph, please. Do you recognize that picture?
Yes, I do.
And what's in that photograph?
This is a photograph of the apparent piece of hair I noted on the rear area.
Is that a fair and accurate depiction of what you saw that day?
Yes.
Turn to the second photograph, please. Do you recognize what's in that photograph?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
This is an additional photo of the apparent hair on the vehicle.
Both photographs of the same piece of hair?
Yes.
And the second photograph, is that a fair and accurate depiction of what you saw?
Yes.
I'd like to move these two photographs into evidence, please.
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, is A and B, please.
It's 144A and 144B.
With the court's permission, I'd like to show P173 to the jury. If you could get in as close as possible, Ms. Gilman. Do you recognize what's in that photograph?
Yes, I do.
And can you share with us what you saw?
This is a close-up photo of the apparent piece of hair on the rear of the vehicle.
What did you do when you saw that, what you thought to be a piece of hair?
I marked it with the tape. I designated it as letter A, and then I asked the crime scene services trooper to take a photograph of it.
Did you try to preserve it in any way?
Yes, I did.
Tell us how you preserved that apparent piece of hair.
I collected that hair with either disposable tweezers or tweezers that had been bleached with a 10% bleach solution. I put them in a glassine envelope and then put them in a larger manila envelope. In a larger manila envelope.
What happens to that larger manila envelope?
It is returned back to the lab. It is submitted under the same case number and given its own individual item number.
Did you bring it personally back to the lab?
Yes, I did.
When you brought it back to the lab, do you remember where you brought it when you got back to the lab?
After it was entered into the computer system, I then sealed it, I initialed and dated it, and then I would transfer it to the crime scene response holding area in our cold storage room.
When you pass it along, is it to protect it in evidence, or is it for a purpose of further testing?
At that point, it's just to store it in evidence, and then it will make its way into whatever unit needs the piece of evidence first.
And you did all that with that piece of evidence?
Yes, I did.
I'd like to show the second photograph that you identified. I believe it's P165. Do you recognize that photo?
Yes, I do.
Okay, what do you recognize that to be?
That's an additional photo of the apparent piece of hair on the rear of the vehicle.
In the two different photos, are they taken from the exact same angle?
I believe they're taken from slightly different angles.
And the hair, could you point that out with the pointer of the hair that you found?
Yes. This here is the apparent hair.
Thank you. You can take that down, please. Regarding the damage to the broken taillight, did you have any interest in maintaining that piece of evidence?
Yes, I did.
What did you want to do?
I wanted to collect the entire taillight housing.
Why did you want to do that?
If there were pieces from the taillight that could be later matched to the taillight, I needed the entire housing to be processed at the lab.
Did you make efforts to try to maintain or remove or preserve that entire taillight housing?
Yes, I did.
What's a taillight housing?
Excuse me?
What is a taillight housing?
I'm referring to the entire piece, including the back, the glass covering, the light bulb inside. So it's in the entire unit.
Did you attempt to remove that entire unit yourself?
I did.
Were you successful?
No, I was not.
So what did you do?
A Canton police officer that was in the Sally Port at the time offered to help disconnect it with some tools that he had.
Have you ever seen whether there's video that memorialized that entire event?
Yes, there is.
And have you ever watched that video?
Yes, I did.
Does that video show you attempting to remove the housing and then receiving assistance from somebody?
Yes.
When that housing was removed, what happened to it?
I then placed it in a box, I believe I placed it in a paper bag in a box, and then once I brought it back to the lab, I added additional cushion with additional paper to protect it from any further damage.
Were you going to keep that housing, or were you going to put that in evidence for other reasons?
That was put into evidence storage for the time being.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Showing you a photograph. Do you recognize what's in that photograph?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
This is a photograph I took of the taillight housing back at the laboratory upon examination.
Is that in substantially the same condition as when you saw it?
Yes.
Any differences whatsoever from when you saw it?
Not that I noticed, no.
Is that photograph fair and accurate of what you saw that day?
Yes.
Your Honor, move this photograph into evidence.
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay.
Exhibit 145.
With the court's permission, I'd show photograph P187 to the jury, please.
Okay.
Could you tell us what that is?
That is a photo that I took of the taillight housing at the laboratory.
And that's after it's obviously removed from the vehicle.
Yes, that's correct.
And that was packaged and preserved?
Yes.
You could take that down, please. Do you have the actual item, the actual housing with you?
I believe it is here, yes.
With the court's permission, I'd ask the witness to be able to open the item, show it to the jury, and then I would move it into evidence.
Okay.
Thank you. If you would you please remove the item from that box?
Yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
Do you have gloves available?
I brought gloves, yes.
You could hold that so the jury can see it. You could hold it up high, please. Thank you. Thank you very much. If you could return that to the box. I would move this item into evidence, please.
No objection, Your Honor.
That's the only item in that box?
There are additional items in that box as
Oh,
well.
I only want to introduce that one item.
Okay, so that bag, you need to take that bag out.
There are also other items in that bag.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes. Yes, why don't you come on over? Actually, Paul, the lunch is here? All right, jurors, the lunch isn't here, so this seems like a good time to take a break.
Questions and attempting to introduce the taillight housing. Do you remember that?
Yes,
And you mentioned there were a number of items in that bag.
that's correct.
And during that break, did we have a chance to look inside the bag?
Yes.
accompanied by counsel for the defense?
Yes.
When items are stored in a bag, is it common for them to be transferred to other locations other than your evidence locker?
I'm sorry, can you rephrase that information?
When
that
you
question?
store a piece of evidence in an evidence bag and you put it in the evidence locker for safekeeping, does the evidence sometimes travel to other places?
Yes.
If it's tested for other types of information, maybe DNA or biological fluids, can that item be transferred to another department?
Yes.
Is sometimes that item brought back and forth to court for other proceedings?
Yes.
And do you know if this item has been on different travels over time?
I do know that it went into several different units within the laboratory, yes.
When you opened up the bag and you said the housing was in that bag, the other items that were in the bag, do you know when they were put in there?
No, I do not.
Do they appear to be pieces that are consistent with the taillight housing?
I can't testify to whether or not they're consistent.
Okay. When you saw the pieces, do you know whether or not any of the pieces broke off that taillight housing?
I do not know.
The taillight housing, did it have any loose pieces when you first retrieved it from the Canton Police Department?
No, it did not. It had missing pieces, but nothing was loose on the taillight housing itself at the time that I collected it.
And the loose pieces on the bottom of that bag, they were in the bag when you opened it this morning?
Yes, that's correct.
The loose pieces, last time you had an opportunity to open that bag was how long ago?
The only time I opened that, the packaging for the taillight housing was in the laboratory when I first examined it in 2023.
And do you have any indication this has passed many hands or hands since then?
I do know that that item went to the trace unit after I examined it.
Those loose pieces in the bottom of the bag, I'm going to ask you to keep them with the taillight housing.
Okay.
And I'm going to move that piece of evidence. Evidence, I may have one moment.
Okay.
Okay. One last question. When a bag is opened by somebody who's examining it, if there are small loose pieces accompanying the item, is it ever packaged in separate baggies or containers?
In the criminalistics unit, so I can only speak for myself and my individual examination, if there are loose items within the item that's packaged with it, I would separate it and potentially separate into a smaller package and put it inside the larger container so that it doesn't get lost.
In addition to the loose pieces in the bottom of that bag, do you see separate small containers, packaging of
Yeah.
smaller pieces?
Yes, there were 2 smaller containers within that larger bag.
And those smaller packages that are separate from the actual larger item, did you put smaller pieces in those small bags?
I did not do that.
It was done by somebody other than you?
At some point, yes.
Okay. I now move to introduce that into evidence.
No objection, subject to the explanation and cross-examination, Your Honor.
Okay.
Could you present that?
Yes.
Yes.
The whole bag.
Yes. And you can keep the gloves on. I just want to be able to show the small.
Oh, okay,
separate
that's fine. I'll
packages
just get in here.
after it's marked.
Sure.
Exhibit 146.
You've already showed us the housing. Can you show us some of the small pieces in the bottom of the bag and also the small separate packaging that you did not package?
Yes.
Thank you. Could you explain what those are?
These are 2 small glassine envelopes that were in the container.
Any markings on those envelopes?
Yes. Would you like me to read them?
Please.
Some of it is illegible to me. I didn't write it. I'm sorry. It appears to be at least the second half of the case number. It's possible that's the 2202184. 3-1 pieces E, G, I'm not sure if it's an M or an H, I, S, K. This also has a case number 22-02184. 3-1, assorted small pieces.
Thank you. And was there any pieces that weren't packaged other than the housing in that bag?
Yes.
And could you show us, please?
This item was also located in the bag. And these two items were also located in the bag.
Thank you very much. May I approach? Yes. I'll take that.
Thank you.
When you brought the taillight housing back to the lab, did you take it out of the bag and do anything with it?
Yes, during my examination, I did remove it from the bag to look at it.
When you, after you looked at it or during your observations, did you take any samples from it?
Yes, I did.
Explain to us what you did.
I took a polyester swab, I moistened it with sterile water, and then I applied that swab to the external front areas of the taillight.
Why did you do that?
My goal was to collect any potential biological material that was present on the exterior of the taillight.
Did you engage in that procedure pursuant to your training and experience?
Yes, I did.
If we could have former P-187 back on the screen, which is now an exhibit. Could you use the pointer and the television to your right? Could you show us or show the jury where you took a swab, what areas?
Yes.
Thank you.
So I took my collection from this upper right-hand corner, the red apparent plastic, as well from this area down here, another piece of red plastic, and then these clear apparent plastic here on the front of the taillight housing. Basically any areas that would have been exposed when the taillight was intact.
Why do you take the swab and go to multiple different parts of an item?
The goal of this collection was just to determine if there's any biological material in that area, and there's no forensic relevance related to if it came from the upper right or the lower left. I took that collection as a whole, and in addition, there was a very small surface area to begin with.
When you took the swab, did you run it along the breaks in the red part?
Like the edges here?
Yes, the edges.
It's possible, yes, that I collected from those edges.
Do you have a memory of what part you actually swabbed?
I remember swabbing the external areas of the taillight, those that would have been on the outside prior to any damage being done.
Okay, thank you. You can take that down, please. After you engage in the procedure of taking a swab, what do you do to preserve that swab?
That swab is air dried. It's then repackaged in a small glassine envelope. A portion of the swab is also put in a clear plastic tube, which is sent forward to the DNA unit.
Did you do that?
Yes, I did.
Why do you go through that type of procedure? Why do you take that many steps?
I'm sorry, may I correct my answer
Please.
from the last question?
Please.
My apologies. So in this particular instance, the entire swab was cut up and put into plastic tubes for further testing.
Why did you do it that way?
This item was quantity limited. The swab itself was quantity limited, meaning that they'd have to use up the whole swab in order to run DNA analysis.
Did you do DNA analysis on the swab?
No, I did not.
Why not?
I don't work in the DNA unit, so that is the job of a different analyst.
And at some point, did you take that item that had been preserved and put it into evidence?
Yes, I did.
Were you shown a bag full of red plastic cups with an item in it when you were at the Canton Police Department?
Yes, I was.
Could we have Exhibit 56, please? Thank you. This is a photograph that's been marked as an exhibit. Do you recognize what's in that exhibit?
Yes, I do.
And what is it?
Those are 6 red plastic cups that contained frozen red-brown stains.
Did you do anything relative to the content of those cups?
I took a collection from one of the cups using 2 sterile cotton swabs.
Can you just briefly explain what that process entails?
Yes. I allowed the frozen red-brown stains to thaw. I applied sterile water to 2 cotton swabs, and then I applied it to one of the red-brown stained cups to collect the material from inside.
How do you preserve and maintain the integrity of whatever sample you collect?
That sample is then entered into a glassine envelope, a larger manila envelope. It is then sealed with my initials and date. It is given an independent item number and stored within the proper unit within the lab.
You take that down. Thank you. At some point, did you look at clothing?
Yes, I did.
Where did you look at clothing?
I examined the clothing from this case at the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory.
Was the items brought to the crime laboratory?
Yes, they were.
Did you have a chance to unpackage them?
Yes, I did.
When you received them, how were they stored?
They were stored in brown paper bags and potentially boxes. I don't remember off the top of my head.
And did you look at a number of different items of clothing?
Yes, I did.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm going to show you a series of 4 photographs. I'm going to ask you about each one of them individually. You recognize the first photograph?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
This is a photograph I took of a gray sweatshirt.
Is that photograph accurately depict the sweatshirt as it appeared to you when you looked at it?
Yes, it does.
Can you look at the second photograph, please? Do you recognize what's in that photograph?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
This is an additional photograph of the front of the gray sweatshirt where I had put some markings on the sweatshirt.
Why did you put markings on the sweatshirt?
These markings specifically are noting areas of damage.
Third photograph, please. Do you recognize what's in that photograph?
Yes, I do.
And what's in that photograph?
This is a close-up photo of the area of damage that I denoted as 1.
And a fourth photograph, please. Do you recognize that photograph?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
This is a close-up of area damage 1.
Is that a fair and accurate depiction of what you saw that day when you examined this particular item?
Yes.
Can I move these 4 photographs into evidence?
I could just see them quickly. No objection, Your Honor.
So let's mark them 1 exhibit A, B, C, D, please.
Exhibit 147, A, B, C, and D.
Thank you. With the court's permission, could we please show former P-190 to the jury?
Yes.
Is that one of the photographs you just recognized?
Yes, it is.
And could you explain to us what you see?
This is the exterior front of the gray sweatshirt. There is linear damage between the top and bottom of the sweatshirt, as well as linear damage across each sleeve of the sweatshirt.
Do you see the cut down the front of that sweatshirt?
Yes.
Did you distinguish that cut as any different than the damage on the arm?
I did not do any damage analysis on that particular area of damage.
Why not?
Typically in these type of events, you'll see those types of damage associated with clothing being removed from emergency medical technicians, so they're not forensically relevant.
Thank you. If we could turn now to former P-194. Is this the same sweatshirt?
Yes, it is.
There's a little bit difference. There's markings or tabs on it?
Yes, that's correct.
What are you doing there?
I put tabs on each of the areas of damage on the sleeve and 2 on the chest that I was going to examine further.
When you put the tabs on, do you write a report or mark it in any way to memorialize it in case the tabs fall off?
Yes, in this case, they were marked tabs 1 through 9. Those are not permanent on the sweatshirt. They're actually just pieces of filter paper that I used to mark it.
Could we, Ms. Gilman, zoom in on that right arm, please? Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. What is written on those tabs?
Each tab has a number on it that corresponds with an area of damage that I examined.
And when you write a report, when you memorialize it, is that to keep an accounting of each?
Yes, that's correct.
If we could turn now to former P-196, which is 147C. What does that depict, ma'am?
That is a close-up of the area of damage 1 that I did further examination on.
Could we zoom in a little bit on the circle part? Is that a fair and accurate depiction of what it looked like when you examined it?
Yes, it is.
And finally, if we could have P-197, which is Exhibit 147D. What are you doing there?
That's a close-up photo of that same area of damage 1 with a scale included.
We just saw a close-up of one of the holes that was marked number 1. Did you do the same analysis for each and every one of those areas that you marked?
Yes, I did.
And did you look close up at each and every one of them and measure each and every one of them?
Yes, I did.
Are there photographs showing all of those different angles for each and every hole that you went through?
Yes, I took numerous photographs of each area of damage.
You could take that down, please. In addition to that sweatshirt, did you look at any other clothing items?
Yes, I did.
Court's permission, can I approach?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm showing you 2 photographs. If you could look at the first one, do you recognize what's in that photograph?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
This is item 7-17. It's an orange T-shirt.
Is it a fair? Should I write? Thank you. Is that a fair and accurate depiction of the T-shirt when you examined it?
Yes, it is.
And the second photograph, please, take a look.
Yes.
Do you recognize what's in that?
Yes, I do.
And what is it?
This is the other side of the orange T-shirt.
Is that a fair and accurate depiction of the T-shirt when you examined it?
Yes, it is.
All right, move these 2 photographs into evidence, please.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Exhibits 148A and B.
With the court's permission, I'd like to show P-232 to the jury.
Okay.
Could you tell us what you see?
That is a photograph of item 7-17, is the back of the orange T-shirt.
Could we zoom a little in on the numbers on the bottom, Ms. Gilman? What's that on the bottom?
That is the case number, the individual item number for that T-shirt, my initials and the date that I examined it, or the date that I took the photo.
So you had obtained this item on that date, or this is when you examined it and already had it?
That is the date that I opened it up, examined it, and took the photo.
And on the left, what's that ruler used for?
That's a scale just to show the size of the item.
Could we zoom back out and get a full look at that? Thank you. If you could turn next to P233, Ms. Gilman. What is that a photograph of?
That is a photograph of the front of the orange T-shirt, item 7-17.
Ms. Gilman, can we first see the bottom left-hand corner, zoomed in a little bit? Thank you. Why did you place a marker there?
I used markers on this item to note areas of staining that I was going to do further analysis on.
Did you do further analysis of that stain area?
Yes, I did.
And how did you do that? Any different than the swab you talked about before?
This I screened for blood, and I'd have to check my notes for any further testing I did on it.
When you screened it for blood, was it positive or negative result?
That was positive.
Do you know if you did anything further with it?
May I check my notes?
With the
Yes.
court's permission? Thank you.
Can you turn the lights up, please? Thank you.
Please.
Yes, I also performed a confirmatory test for blood on that stain.
So what's the difference between a preliminary and a confirmatory test?
A screening test, other types of materials may cause a positive reaction. For the confirmatory test, it is confirmatory for blood, as well as it indicates human blood, although you might get a positive reaction from primate blood or ferret blood.
Can we now turn to the top right and zoom in, if you would? We see 3 tabs there. What are you looking for in those areas?
Those are 3 additional red-brown stains that I performed further testing on.
And do you have the results of that testing?
So I performed a screening test on each of those tests, and each of those screening tests was positive. I performed a confirmatory test on stains A and C, which were also positive. I did not perform that test on stain B due to its small size.
If you could zoom out just a little bit, please. Similar to the sweatshirt, there's long cuts through the front of that T-shirt. Is your analysis and opinion any different than the similar cuts that you saw on the sweatshirt?
Yes, I did not perform any additional analysis on those area of damage due to the fact that they're most likely attributed to the emergency medical technicians or medical personnel removing that item of clothing.
Thank you. You could take that down, please, Ms. Gilman. And for the final piece of clothing, did you have a chance to look at pants?
I did look at a pair of jeans, yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I handed you 2 photographs. The first one, do you recognize it?
Yes, I do.
And what is it?
This is a photograph of the front of the pair of jeans, item 7-1.
Could you look at the second photograph, please? Do you recognize what's in that?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
This is a photograph of the back of the pair of jeans, item 7-1.
Do both of those photographs fairly depict what you saw when you examined the clothing?
Yes, they do.
I'd move these 2 to evidence, please.
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Exhibits 149A and B.
With the court's permission, I'd show P242, which is 149A, to the jury.
Okay.
Was there anything of note when you examined these pants?
These pants also had linear damage between the top and the bottom, which would be consistent with cuts made by emergency medical personnel when removing the item.
If we could zoom in to show those cuts, Ms. Gilman. And could we scroll down, please? Thank you. If we could next show P243, which is 149B. Could you zoom in on the top part of those pants, please? Do you make any observations or notes about the pants?
May I look at my notes, please?
With the court's permission, please. Thank you.
I noted numerous red-brown stains on the clothing, as well as dirt and debris on the clothing.
What part of the pants did you note the dirt and debris?
It was just a general observation. I didn't specifically denote where it was.
Ms. Gilman, could you scroll from the top to the bottom of the pants, please? Thank you. You can take that down, please. Did you perform any additional testing relative to the clothing that you examined, that being the sweatshirt, the T-shirt, and the pants?
I performed numerous tests on each of the red-brown stains on the items that I marked.
After you completed examining the red and brown stains, did you do any other type of testing or evidence collection relative to the clothing?
Yes, I did.
Could you share with the jury what you did as far as further evidence collection relative to the clothing?
Can we take it item by item? How would you
sure
prefer
can.
to do it?
Let's start with the sweatshirt.
Okay. So in addition to testing the red-brown stains, I collected any stain that was positive or confirmatory for blood. After performing that collection, I also performed a collection around the tears on the right sleeve of the item. That's using 2 cotton swabs moistened with sterile water, which I vigorously rubbed around the areas of the teared areas on the sleeve. I also performed an additional scraping and swabbing of the unstained area of the sweatshirt for any potential skin cell recovery. In addition, I performed a debris collection from the sweatshirt.
I want to stop you there. I want you to explain to us in some detail what is a debris collection and how do you undergo a debris collection?
After I've completed all the testing that I'm going to do on the item, I remove any large items that may be present on the item, such as apparent hairs or fibers, anything that I can pick off I can visibly see with a pair of tweezers. Once that is done, I will do I did a general debris collection where I took a large metal spatula-shaped object and scraped the clothing, or in this particular case, the sweatshirt. And any debris that came off the sweatshirt was put into a glassine fold and preserved.
Before you tried to scrape off any debris that was on the sweatshirt, could you, to your own eye, see any debris in the sweatshirt?
May I check my notes?
Yes.
In this particular case, I did pick off a couple of pieces of what I termed black debris. I made no additional analysis of that item. I packaged that separately, and then the scrapings themselves, I did not make any observations of anything contained in those scrapings. So there was nothing of note that I could have put in my notes to further classify them.
When you do the scraping, is there a table or a desk that you would see small pieces or difficult pieces? How do you contain what you're scraping from an item?
I lay out a piece of glassine paper, which is approximately 6 inches by 6 inches, and I scrape the debris into that glassine, and then I fold it up and put it in an additional envelope to prevent anything from falling out.
So if there's any debris, you would fold it in the glassine and then put that in a separate envelope?
Yes, that's correct.
And did you continue to study and scrape the other pieces of clothing?
Yes, I performed that same type of scraping on the orange T-shirt. That scraping was combined with the scrapings from the sweatshirt. I performed the same scraping on the jeans as well as the boxer shorts.
In that scraping process, did you acquire debris?
Yes, there was some visible debris.
How small were the pieces?
I did not make any measurements of it.
Why not?
That's done by a different analysis unit, so I didn't do any type of analysis on that debris.
How small or large were the pieces of debris that you scraped from the clothing?
I did not take any measurements of them.
How did you store the debris that you scraped from the clothing?
It was put into a glassine fold, given a separate item number, and then put into a larger glassine fold so that it could be tracked throughout the laboratory.
Do you have that item number?
Yes, I do. So the debris from the sweatshirt and T-shirt was item 7-18.18.
I'm going to ask you one more time for that number.
7-18.18.
And that's the debris that you scraped from the shirt and the sweatshirt.
Correct.
Did you do any debris scrapings from the pants?
Yes, I did.
Was any debris produced from the pants?
Yes.
Was it similarly packaged?
Yes, that's correct.
Was there a different item number given for the pants?
Yes.
And what was that item number?
May I check my notes?
Yes.
Thank you. That item number, the debris from the jeans, was 7-1.8.
Those two items, the debris that you acquired from those clothing items, did you send them anywhere?
I put those in our secured storage unit, and they were later forwarded on to the trace unit for analysis.
They later went to the trace unit?
Yes, that's correct.
When you arrived at Canton on February 1st, 2022, do you recall what the weather was like outside?
I don't recall. I just know that it was winter.
You said when you first get to a scene, you have a conversation about the investigators' information to help your assessment. And I don't want you to discuss what that conversation may have been, but did you have a similar conversation?
Yes, I did.
When you're looking at an item that's been stored, like in this case, a car, does the weather conditions, ice, cold, snow, ever preserve or maintain evidence on an item longer than it otherwise would stay?
I'm sorry, can you ask that one more time, please?
Does ice or snow or the weather ever maintain evidence longer than otherwise would stay? For example,
I don't have any data or information to that.
have you ever had an opportunity to view videos of the Lexus when it was first stored and the condition of snow and ice on it and the thawing process of that?
I don't believe that's the part of the video I saw, no.
You saw a video after the snow had already melted?
I don't know if the snow had melted. When I saw the vehicle, it did not have snow on it.
Okay. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Okay.
Your Honor, may I approach the
Yes.
witness? Thank you. Your Honor, pursuant to...
Show Mr. Brennan what you did. Okay.
Pursuant to a stipulation with the Commonwealth, we've stipulated into evidence various documents. So what I'd like, with Your Honor's permission, and for the clerk
Great.
to have them marked as next in order, and then I'll proceed from there.
Thank you. Should any be marked A, B, and C, or are they each separate?
Separate, please, Your Honor.
Okay.
Exhibits 150 through 153.
And Your Honor, there is one more exhibit that we had pursuant to stipulation to offer in the evidence. Next in order.
Exhibit 154.
And Your Honor, if I could just show Mr. Wolf this to make this more efficient
Okay.
for the last one. Excuse me. Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you for that opportunity, Your Honor. And if I could, please, I'll leave these here. These are all going to be published with Your Honor's permission, but obviously the witness is going to need them for us.
So you can put them right on the witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Unless I may approach for the witness. Thank you. You may read this as you-
Sure, thank you.
Good afternoon, Ms. Hartman.
Good afternoon.
Is it acceptable to you for me to refer to you as Ms. Hartnett?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
You were dispatched to the Sally Port at the Canton Police Department on February 1st, 2022 by former Massachusetts State Trooper Michael Proctor, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
You understood at that time that Michael Proctor was the lead detective, the person who was in control of the investigation?
Yes, that's what I was informed of when I arrived.
While you were there, one of the things that you did initially was to conduct an overview of the vehicle meaning the black Lexus SUV that you talked about extensively on direct, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
That was important to you given the limited information that you had at the time about what was contended to be a potential motor vehicle pedestrian incident, correct?
That is something that I would do in any type of exam where I'm looking at a vehicle. I look at the overall vehicle.
So you were looking for anything possible that would rise to the level of investigative concern regarding that vehicle, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you're familiar with the parlance investigative concern, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And that's why you noted various items, for example, scratches on the vehicle?
Yes.
You didn't draw any conclusions as to where those scratches came from, though, did you?
No, I did not.
The dent that you noted and photographed that you discussed on your direct examination, you likewise made no conclusion as to the source or cause of that dent, correct?
That's correct.
And you did therefore not make any or draw any conclusions as to whether that dent was caused by any motor vehicle or pedestrian accident, correct?
Correct.
You're a forensic scientist, too, for the Massachusetts State Police Department, as I understand it?
Yes.
With regard to the taillight that you spoke about rather extensively on your direct examination, you likewise were not able to, and you make no conclusions as to the cause of that broken taillight, correct?
That's correct.
And you draw, therefore, no conclusions with regard to whether that taillight became in the condition that was discussed on direct examination pursuant to any alleged motor vehicle pedestrian incident, correct?
Correct.
The dent, the scratches, the broken taillight on the Lexus, to your knowledge, as you sit here today, could have existed before February 1st, 2022 when you went to Sallyport, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And to your knowledge, the dent, the scratches, the broken taillight could have existed before January 29th of 2022, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
You also looked for, as you stated, tissue, blood, biological material, and things of that nature on the vehicle, correct?
Yes, I did.
In that inspection of the vehicle, you didn't see any visible stains or tissue on the vehicle, did you?
No, I did not.
You were told, Ms. Harnett, that there were wounds on the right arm of Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And at the time you went to the Sally Port on February 1st of 2022, you were not shown a photograph by anybody of the wounds on the right arm of Mr. O'Keefe, were you?
No, I was not.
However, you've seen since then a photograph of the right arm of Mr. O'Keefe and the wounds on that right arm, correct?
Yes, I have.
With Your Honor's permission, if I could publish Exhibit 1 in evidence?
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Wolf? Ms. Harnett, I'd ask you to take a look at that, and you recognize that what's depicted in that Exhibit 1, correct?
Yes, I do.
And you've seen that pattern of wounds on the right arm as depicted in a photograph of the decedent before, correct?
I've seen this photo before, yes.
You cannot state whether the wounds on the right arm as depicted in Exhibit 1 are from a motor vehicle, can you?
That would be on the scope of my expertise. I don't make any conclusions on injuries on a person.
So the answer is you cannot and do not make any conclusions with regard to the source of the wounds on the right arm as Mr. O'Keefe as depicted in that Exhibit 1, correct?
That's correct.
And you're also not able to state whether you observed anything on the vehicle.
Mr. Alessi, can we put are you done with this?
I'm not yet,
Okay.
Your Honor, but I will let the court know. It'll be shortly. Thank you. And you cannot state that you observed anything on the SUV that would cause the wounds on the right arm of Mr. O'Keefe as depicted in Exhibit 1, correct?
That is not a type of analysis I would perform.
So the answer to that question is no, you cannot state that you observed anything on the vehicle that would cause those wounds to the right arm of Mr. O'Keefe?
Yes.
Sustained.
We can now take that down, Your Honor. Thank you. Did you look toward the top of the lift gate of the Lexus vehicle when you were at the Sally Port Canton Police Department on February 1st of 2022?
Are you referring to the exterior or the interior?
Exterior.
I don't recall specifically looking at that area. I did an overall examination of the vehicle, with exception to the actual roof of the vehicle. So I don't remember specifically looking at that area.
So as you sit here today, there is nothing notable with regard to that area of the vehicle, correct?
I had nothing in my notes regarding that area, no.
And as you sit here today, there's nothing you're recalling that is notable about the tap part around the lift gate of the back of the SUV, correct?
That's correct.
Did anyone ask you to examine that area?
Not that area specifically, no.
Do you understand what I will refer to as the undercarriage of the vehicle?
Yes.
And what, just for the jury's better understanding, what are you referring to when you refer to the undercarriage of the vehicle? I know it may be common sense, but just to be clear.
What I understand the undercarriage to be, where if I was laying underneath the car, what I would be looking at, it include the muffler, various pipes, but that's the extent of my knowledge of vehicles.
So if we're talking about the back of the vehicle, and if we go sort of top to bottom, top where we were talking about above the lift gate, going all the way down, and then go to the bumper, and then go under the bumper, and where it curls under the bumper, then with the bumper and underneath and more a little toward the front, is that what you're referring to as the undercarriage?
Yes, just the general area underneath the vehicle, extending from under the bumper to the front of the vehicle.
Right, so the undercarriage is not merely from the back, but it's underneath all the way toward the front of the vehicle, correct?
Yes, that's
correct.
correct.
And you refer to all, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. So all that area you refer to as the undercarriage?
Yes.
Did you notice anything of note in the undercarriage, as you just described it, of the vehicle?
No, I did not.
And as regards sampling that you discussed on your direct examination, did you take any samples of that undercarriage area of the vehicle?
I did not collect anything from the undercarriage, no.
And is the reason you didn't collect anything because you didn't see anything of note that was worthy of collection?
In addition to that, I also performed some testing of that area.
And what testing of that area did you perform?
I performed screening tests on some of the lower lying areas of the undercarriage, on the tire flaps, the edge of the bumper, the muffler pipe.
And what were the results of that testing, that screening testing?
Those results were negative.
And negative for what?
It was a screening test for the possible presence of blood.
So on the entire undercarriage, from where we started in the very back, all the way underneath, all the way up to the front, the screening test came back negative for any blood or other biological material or anything else of note that would be part of that screening test.
So I did not perform a screening test on the entire undercarriage. I just performed the screening test on the lower lying areas, and those were all negative. And there was also no visible staining in that area, so that is correct.
What I'd like to do now is to talk about sort of overall what we just discussed. So you discussed certain damage to the vehicle. You had no way on February 1st, and you have no way today of knowing whether any or all of that damage was pre-existing before January 29th of 2022, correct?
That's correct.
So it's possible that all the damage that you've discussed could have existed before January 29th of 2022.
Yes, that's possible.
Are you aware of the odometer reading of the Lexus when it was in the Sallyport garage?
No, I'm not.
If we showed you a document in evidence that would have that on the mileage on the odometer, might that refresh your recollection as to what the mileage was?
That's not something I made a note of or even observed on the day that I was looking at the vehicle.
Okay. So you were there with Trooper Clark on February 1st, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Are you aware of whether Trooper Clark observed and took a picture of the odometer? Are you aware if that happened?
I'm not aware of that specific picture.
The mileage on the vehicle was of no interest to you in your inspection as a forensic scientist too?
So my role as a forensic scientist, too, is to look for potential biological fluids and trace materials on an item. The mileage would not be something that I have ever made note of in any of my examinations of a vehicle.
So but you do analyze damage, correct?
I perform damage analysis on textiles and softer materials, not on vehicles.
But you performed a damage analysis on this vehicle, correct?
No, that's not correct.
So you observed damage on this vehicle, correct?
Yes.
But although you observed damage for your role, your position is that the mileage is of not of interest regarding your role. Have I got that correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Moving on to another category, you spoke on direct examination about solo cups and 6 solo cups, and there were depictions put on the screen. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
So on February 1st, in addition to taking some swabs from the vehicle, you also mentioned that you took swabs of, as I recall it, frozen red-brown stains located inside the red solo cups?
Yes, that's correct.
Other than in this case, did you ever have to take swabs of red stained material from solo cups that people usually use for other purposes?
I've never performed a collection like that, no.
So this is the first time you ever performed a collection like that, correct?
I mean, the collection process itself is standard, applying the sterile water to the swabs and putting it in a potential stain of interest. However, no, I've never collected a sample from a red solo cup before.
Have you ever taken a sample from a red solo cup since that February 1st?
No, I've not.
How many swabs did you take with regard to the red solo cups?
I took 2 swabs.
How did you choose which of the 6 solo cups that you were going to take? And I understand you took 2. Did you take 2 swabs?
2 swabs, but they were considered the same sample. They were taken from the same cup, same stain.
That was what I wanted to get at, is you took 2 swabs, but they were from the same solo cup.
That's correct.
Do you recall how you chose which solo cup you were going to take the swab from?
I don't recall.
Could that be of significance, which one you chose and why?
In this particular case, I did not believe it was significant at the time.
Did you confer with anybody as to what might be the best solo cup from which to take the swab?
I did receive information about where those solo cups were collected from, which helped me in making that decision.
As a forensic scientist, too, you're aware that blood stains can contain, and these red-brown stains here, could contain multiple contributors, correct?
In some instances, that is correct.
What's a multiple contributor?
A multiple contributor, I believe the term more used in the DNA unit. However, having many contributors to a particular stain just mean there may be multiple sources of that biological material.
Do you know which red-brown stains that are contended to be found at the scene relate to which solo cup in the bag that these solo cups were in?
The information I had at the time were that these were collected from a single stained area from beneath the victim.
But you don't have personal knowledge of that, correct?
No, that's correct. I was not present at the scene at 34 Fairview.
If the swabs were taken from multiple stains, you would have no way of knowing whether the swabs were taken from the same stain, correct?
Can you rephrase that, please?
Sure. If the swabs were taken from multiple stains, you wouldn't know where the swabs in particular came from?
So are you speaking of the swabs that I took?
Yes.
So the swabs that I took, I know came from one of those 6 cups. And I was informed that those 6 cups of red-brown stains came from a single stained area underneath the victim.
That information you just spoke about, was it put in any note that you read?
It was something that I had in my notes.
Did anybody else convey that information to you at the Sally Port?
I got that from an officer on scene at the Sally Port, but I do not recall which officer relayed that to me.
So it was verbal information you got from
That is correct.
person. Did that person show you any note or chain of custody or other document to support his or her statement in that regard?
No, they did not.
Ultimately, once you did take those swabs from a single solo cup, what did you do with the rest of the evidence in the cup?
That evidence was left with the Canton PD.
So you left the rest of the brown stained blood evidence from the solo cups with the Canton PD. You didn't take it back with you to your officer lab.
Correct.
DNA testing was not done on those swabs, was it?
I don't believe it was. No, no testing was done on those swabs.
So as we all sit here today, there has been no confirmation of whose blood those swabs relate to, correct?
At this time, those were not tested for blood at all, so I couldn't confirm that they were blood, and no additional testing was done. That is correct.
So therefore, we don't know any person or persons they might relate to.
That is correct.
And thus, we don't know if there were multiple contributors to those stains.
Objection.
Sustained.
You testified that the remainder of the contents of the solo cup that you swabbed from, as well as the other 5 solo cups, were retained at the Canton Police Department, as you know, before you left. And that investigation, as you said at the time, was being headed up by former Trooper Proctor, correct?
That is correct.
Michael Proctor was at the Canton Police Department Sallyport location at the time you were performing your work on February 1st, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Did Michael Proctor take control of those solo cups?
I do not know who took control of the solo cups. I know that I turned them over to a Canton police officer. I handed them to a Canton police officer.
Might Michael Proctor have taken control of those solo cups?
To my knowledge, it was a Canton police officer at that time. I don't know what happened to them after they were turned over to the Canton PD.
Why is it that you believe a Canton police officer had control over those cups rather than former Trooper Proctor?
Just from my actual memory, I remember turning them over. They had collected the frozen red brown stains in the cups, so it was technically their evidence. I took the sample I needed from them, so I just returned it to the officer who had presented them to me.
So therefore, after you presented them, you don't know who took control of those cups. Is that a fair conclusion?
Yes, that's correct. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's okay. My question probably wasn't all that clear. Ultimately, during your work and inspection of the vehicle, the SUV, the right rear taillight housing was removed as you testified to on direct examination, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you testified that a Canton police officer sort of helped you with the last stage of the removal of that taillight?
Yes, that's correct.
Do you know whether that officer was wearing, do you have a distinct recollection that that officer was wearing any special protective gloves?
I only know because I have seen the videos recently that he was wearing gloves.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your answer.
I only know that he was wearing gloves because I have recently seen the video. I do not have a first-hand memory of that.
You said you recently saw a video. When was that?
Monday?
And what was
Maybe,
the...
no, I'm sorry. Let me correct myself. What day is today? I saw it Thursday, excuse me.
And what was the circumstances under which you were reviewing a video?
I had just recently found out there was video, and it's just something I wanted to see in case I was shown it on the stand so I knew what it consisted of. I hadn't seen it prior to last Thursday.
Did you testify to that on your direct and I missed it, or did it not come up? Reviewing a video.
I'm sorry, yes. I believe I was asked if I had seen the video, and yes, I had.
Okay, thank you. Now back to the tail light. Mr. Woke, if we could have Exhibit 145 published.
Okay.
With Your Honor's permission.
Yes.
Thank you. We have up on the screens, and I know you went through this on direct, so I'm going to shortcut it. This is the tail light at the lab that you were talking about on direct, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And that's the tail light housing that you submitted to the lab that you had obtained from the Sallyport garage, right?
Yes,
And
correct.
just to cover quickly some basics, there was one swab taken that you mentioned on direct of that tail light.
Yes.
And you testified, if I remember correctly, on direct that you, well, it's better for you just, if you could with a pointer, is just show the areas you covered with that one swab.
So I collected the swab from any of the, what would have been exposed areas of the taillight when the taillight was intact.
And if you could, please, just give like a perimeter full, I know it's not a circle, but whatever it is, just full perimeter so the jury can see the entire area that you swabbed.
Sure. It was this upper right-hand red area, this portion down here, I believe it's red, and then there's also a portion of clear area in the front here that was swabbed, and that was all contained on a single swab.
Thank you very much. So I want to keep this up if I could, Your Honor, but we can have the lights back on if that's acceptable. Just, so, thank you. In terms of the swabbing, you did not swab, therefore, any other area of that taillight, correct? Including the area to the left of where you just drew the circle, if you will, around, correct?
I would just say it's difficult from this picture to see if there's what would have been exposed when the may I finish? I'm sorry. I don't know specifically on the left from this picture if there's anything that would have been there prior to the damage. If there was an external area, it would have been included in my collection. So I just didn't include any of the internal components of the taillight. So if I'm missing a piece over there that would have been on the exterior, then I apologize. I just can't see it in the picture if it's there.
Let's just assume my discussion and my questions. You don't have to assume this. My questions are just with regard to the inside of the taillight, because you've very nicely governed and talked about the outside of the taillight as you described it, where you swabbed. now I want to go to the areas that you didn't swab.
Okay.
Whatever you best can do to describe the areas of the taillight that you did not swab.
Okay.
And if you could use the laser pointer, if that
Sure.
helped you.
So I did not swab the internal areas of the taillight. So here where the light bulb would have been, or down here where it's gray.
And focusing on the more, is it okay to call it the inside part of the taillight? Is that acceptable?
Okay.
So the inside of the taillight, to be clear, you didn't swab that area.
No, I did not.
In terms of where you did swab, given that you swabbed with one swab the entire area, you are not able to say precisely where any DNA might have come from?
Just that it would have been present, if there was DNA present on that swab, it would have come from the external exposed area of the taillight, should the taillight have been intact.
But again, on the inside, because you didn't swab the inside, you had no evidence of DNA on the inside of the taillight, correct?
Correct, I did not swab the inside.
With regard to the, what we'll call the outside, where you did swab, as opposed to the inside where you didn't, you cannot define whether the DNA was to the upper right, to the outside of the taillight lens, or some other place in that area, correct?
No, I wouldn't be able to narrow down where on the external portion, external front. I mean, I didn't swab anything in the back that was attached to the vehicle. So anything in the external front, I would not be able to narrow down any further where, if any biological material was present, where it was recovered from, specifically on the external area.
You did not find any glass on the inside of the taillight, did you?
Are you referring to like loose pieces?
Any kind of glass at all?
I did not note anything unusual inside the taillight.
I'm speaking, thank you for that answer. I am speaking specifically about glass. You didn't find any glass on the inside of that taillight when you were at Sallyport for your entire inspection on February 1st, 2022, correct?
I'm just want to make sure that I understand your question. I didn't find anything that was not inherent to the taillight inside. I don't know what the taillight's made out of. So if there's a portion on the inside that's made out of glass, it may have been there. I didn't see anything that was out of place on the interior of the taillight.
So using your terms inherent, you mean by that something could have been on the inside of that taillight that was part of the taillight that could have been glass. But other than that, there's no what scientists call exogenous or outside glass or glass that doesn't belong as part of the taillight, correct?
I'm hesitant to answer that specific question. I don't perform glass analysis, so I just perform collection. So if there was something that apparently looked like glass that had been loose inside, if that's what you're referring to, I can answer that question. But I can't say specifically whether a material is glass.
I understand. My question is a basic one.
Okay.
Which is, you found no glass that would not be associated. Let me strike that. Did you ever observe in this taillight any glass as part of the taillight that's part of the taillight? Anything glass that you observed?
Again, I can't make the distinction on a material being glass, so I think the premise of the question I'm having difficulty answering.
Okay. So, last part of the questioning, you didn't make any note that said you found glass inside of that taillight, correct?
I wouldn't make a note that something is glass inside a taillight because I can't draw a conclusion to what a material is, because that's just not part of the analysis I do.
And to wrap this part up, and then we can move on from this item, you didn't find any DNA on the inside of that taillight?
My analysis would not include DNA analysis because that is a different unit, so I can't answer that question.
To your knowledge, as you sit here today, is there any information from anybody that says that there's any DNA in that taillight?
I have no information of that.
Thank you. So what I want to do now is, if we can take that down, Mr. Wolk, I want to move on to what is sometimes referred to as touch DNA. I know you're familiar with that concept, right, Ms. Harnett?
Yes, that's correct.
And what is, for the jurors' understanding, what is touch DNA?
When skin comes into contact with an item, potentially skin cells can be left behind, which is commonly referred to as touch DNA, when in essence it's these skin cells from the person being transferred to another object or item.
So is this a fair example that if I walk by the podium and brush my hand against it like that, I could very well leave touch DNA on that podium for what I just did? Okay.
So stand without more foundation from this witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. So is it possible for me, as I'm sitting here talking, based upon your knowledge, to leave touch DNA on this podium?
Same.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. Are you familiar with the process by which a person can leave touch DNA on the surface?
Yes, I commonly defer to biological material because that is what my expertise is in. Skin cells can be transferred to an item, and skin cells can potentially provide DNA.
So do hands, palms of hands, produce skin cells?
Yes, they are made of skin cells,
And
correct.
if a hand is on, for example, a podium, can there be a transfer of skin cells to the podium?
Yes, there can be.
And therefore, can the hands on a podium that have skin cells transfer DNA?
Yes, again, I'm not a DNA expert, but generally that would be the source, would be skin cells. Could be, yes.
You also indicated that you collected apparent glass from the rear bumper of the Lexus, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you use the term apparent glass, as I understand forensic science, because at the time you're not really sure what it is, right? So you use the word apparent glass, and you can't take away the apparent until there's a confirmation that it is glass, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And on your direct examination, you went through a discussion, so I'm going to shortcut it a little bit, about apparent glass that you located on the rear bumper of the vehicle, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Your Honor, with your permission, can we publish Exhibit 141, which is in evidence?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Wolf? Ms. Hartnett, I'm showing you what is Exhibit 141 in evidence, and I know you know this, and I know it's been discussed. Could you just give a brief summary of what is depicted in Exhibit 141?
This is a close-up of the right rear area of the bumper where I noted the pieces of apparent glass.
And you remember discussing this on your direct examination?
Yes.
Now, I just want to cover some basics with regard that weren't covered on the direct examination. You're a specially trained person, and that's how you get your forensic scientist 2 title, correct?
Yes, it means that I've gone through all of the training within the lab.
And all that training and all of those procedures are important and necessary because the collection of evidence is important, correct?
That is one of the reasons, correct?
And if those protocols aren't followed, then that can lead to incorrect conclusions, correct?
depending on what portion of the protocol isn't followed, but yes, it's
But
possible.
certainly, at a minimum, it increases the risk for an incorrect conclusion or observation, correct?
Again, it depends on what part of the protocol isn't followed, but it's possible.
I assume it's therefore important to you that the protocols are followed so that the best result and the best collection and therefore the best analysis occurs, correct?
I make every effort to follow the protocols.
Is the quantity of the material you observe and collect also relevant, perhaps not to you, but to other persons in the investigation?
Yes, it can be.
And therefore, it's important not only to get the type of material correct, but to get the quantity correct.
In some instances, yes.
And with regard to your work on this vehicle on February 1st, do you recall discussing the collection, the observations you made with regard to the rear bumper?
Did I discuss, I'm sorry, can you ask that question again,
Sure.
please?
On direct examination, you talked about glass on the rear bumper, correct?
Yes, apparent
You
glass.
talked about what you observed, you talked about what you put a sticker on, you talked about what you collected, you talked about the transport of it, correct?
That is correct.
And you put it in your notes, and you talked about it on direct examination, I assume because it was an important part of the work that you did.
Yes, there's a piece of evidence that I collected, correct.
And therefore, it's important for you to have made correct observations and to make correct collection, correct?
Correct.
With Your Honor's permission, if we could publish Exhibit 133.
Okay.
If I could have a moment with Mr. Woke just to do this efficiently, Your Honor? Thank you. With Your Honor's permission, if Mr. Woke, you could zoom in on the stickers, right? So, Ms. Harnett, on your direct examination, you stated that there were 2 stickers and that there were therefore glass associated with each sticker, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So, 2 stickers and glass associated with each sticker, correct?
Yes, correct.
In fact, there's only 1 sticker, and the second sticker is merely a reflection of the first sticker, and therefore, you have doubled the stickers and you've doubled the amount of glass on the bumper. Can you see that? Can you determine that from the photo?
No, can I see the other photo, please?
Yes.
Okay.
So if we could, Your Honor, with your permission, go to Exhibit 133.
Okay.
You asked to see this one. Can you now make a determination, having seen both of them, whether there is in fact just 1 sticker and therefore 1 volume of glass associated with it?
No, I cannot. You're saying this is a reflection?
I can't testify,
Okay.
so I'm asking you. With Your Honor's permission, if we could go back to the other picture,
Okay?
and if you could zoom in. Do you see a reverse B in that picture?
I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
I'm sorry, a reverse B as in Bob?
No, could you zoom in on each of the stickers for me, please?
We'll do whatever you would like to do to answer the question, so.
Sure. Okay. And then if I could just see the other sticker, please.
Absolutely.
Yes, I believe that is a reverse B, correct?
And doesn't that mean that it's a mere reflection and that there's only one sticker that you put on, and therefore only one volume of glass associated with one sticker?
Can you say that question again? I can't hear you too well.
I'm sorry, I will stay by the microphone. Is this microphone
Yeah.
picking up? So therefore, can you now conclude, because of the reflection and because of the reverse B, that there is only, in actuality, and there was only in actuality, one sticker and one B, and therefore one volume of glass associated with this bumper?
I don't know specifically that it's a reflection. It's not unusual for me to use the same letter on a sticker if I'm going to collect the items of evidence together. So if I had written it, on top or on the bottom of the scale on one of them and on the top of the scale on the other one, that is a possibility. It's difficult for me to tell by this picture. What I can tell you is that all the items of glass or apparent glass that were present on the bumper were collected together. So I can't say specifically by looking at this photo whether I just label two separate areas to make the photo show the pieces better or if it is a reflection. I can't say.
So from what we just went through, you're not able to tell that that is a reflection and therefore a duplication. Is that correct?
I'm
Next.
Sustain.
Do you have any doubt whether there is a reflection on the photo that is on the screen at this moment? Do you have any doubt?
Oh, I would say it could be a possibility, yes.
Right. So you have doubt.
Sustain.
So you believe it's a possibility.
Yes, correct.
Is it more than a possibility?
Sustain.
You would agree that it's important to have the accurate answer to that question, correct?
I think that, yes, obviously understanding and knowing exactly what I'm looking at is important, but it would not change what I would have collected and how I would have labeled it.
So with regard to what others might do and conclude from that, it could be important to them, correct?
Sustain.
Let's go to these, we can go back to the, none of these pieces of apparent glass were embedded in the bumper, correct?
No, they were resting on the bumper.
So by not being embedded and just resting on the bumper, you therefore did not make a notation that they were embedded in your notes. You just put that they were on the bumper, correct?
That's correct.
And sort of as we're elaborating here, you're elaborating, they were just, as your words, they were just resting on the bumper.
Correct.
If we could, if I may confer with Mr. Wolk on the video. Thank you.
Do you need the lights on to do it?
10 seconds. Thank you for that opportunity, Your Honor. If we could go to Exhibit 124, Mr. Wolk, and with Your Honor's permission, if we could publish it. Ms. Harnett, there had been various weather before February 1st in the area. Is that correct? You testified to that somewhat on direct examination.
Yes, that's correct.
And are you able to discern from what is on the screen now that there is some type of precipitation that is on the back window of the lift gate of the vehicle?
Yes.
And is that consistent with what you observed when you were in the Sally Port on February 1st?
I don't believe I observed the precipitation on the back of the vehicle by the time I arrived.
But does this refresh your recollection as to whether there was, in fact, that precipitation on the vehicle at that time?
Can you ask it differently so you need it clearer?
Yes. Do you recall when you were at the Sally Port on February 1st any precipitation on the rear window of the liftgate of the SUV?
No, I do not recall.
And does this depiction refresh your recollection on that point?
I'll allow that. Does it?
No, I don't recall seeing any precipitation on the vehicle, and I don't know when that photo was taken, so that does not refresh my memory of that instance.
Is there a date of January 29th, 2022 on that photo? We can enlarge it if that would help. And again, this is in evidence. Do you see what is at the bottom of the photo?
I do.
Now if we could play, with Your Honor's permission, this video. And if we could stop it at certain points, Mr. Wolk, that would be helpful. May we, Your Honor?
Okay.
Thank you. If you could wait, Mr. Wolk, until the sirens pass. Mr. Wolk, if you can go back just and wait until the sirens pass, please. Thank you. I think they passed. If you could accelerate it just a little bit, Mr. Wolk, without overly accelerating all that's happening. And accelerate it a little bit more. And that's good. And if you could bring, yes, thank you. We could have the lights on and take that down, please. Can you describe what you just saw?
Whatever the white material was present on the back of the vehicle was falling off
And where was it falling onto?
the ground.
And did it hit anything before the ground? For example, did it hit the bumper before it hit the ground?
I didn't take note of that.
That was on January 29th, 2022. You were at the Sallyport on February 1st, 2022, correct?
That's correct.
So, that occurs on January 29. You come to the Sallyport on February 1st, yet there is glass on the bumper on February 1st that, as you have described it, is just perched on the bumper, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Do you know generally where Dighton, Massachusetts is?
Yes.
Do you know where, and you obviously know where Canton is.
Yes.
How far away would you say Dighton is from Canton?
Time-wise, maybe 30 to 45 minutes.
And therefore, roughly, if someone were to go the speed limit, around 30 minutes away?
Sure.
Not holding you to any exact time, just generally. Your notes indicate that the vehicle was recovered from Dighton, the one we've been talking about, the Lexus, and towed back to Canton and placed in the Sallyport garage at the Canton PD before you started your examination, correct?
That's correct.
And you were made aware before your inspection or examination on February 1st of 2022 that the alleged incident in this case took place in Canton, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So you knew you were looking at this vehicle, when you were looking at this vehicle and doing your examination, that the vehicle, by definition as to what we had just covered, went from Canton to Dighton and then towed back from Dighton back to Canton, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So it ends up back in Canton after that journey, correct?
Yes, that's where I examined it, correct.
So, as I understand your notes, the glass pieces that were just perched on the bumper would have traveled about 60 miles before you saw them?
Is that what you're saying?
No.
Well, when do you believe the glass appeared on the bumper, if you know?
I don't know when the apparent glass appeared on the bumper.
So you believe it's possible that the apparent glass appeared on the bumper after January 29, 2022?
Yes.
Sustained.
Do you know the weather conditions that were in the area? We talked about it earlier, you talked about it on direct. In the general time of January 29th of 2022.
Yes, I do.
Do you know when the vehicle took its journey that we talked about, Canton, Dighton, back to Canton? Do you know what day that occurred?
No, I do not.
Would it have, let's assume it was on January 29th, okay?
Yes, okay.
For purposes of my questioning. Do you know what the weather was, including wind speed, on January 29th?
No, I do not. I know general weather conditions. Sorry.
You knew generally, but not specifically, correct?
Correct.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, I'd like to publish Exhibit 60 in evidence.
Okay.
And if you could go through to the top, Mr. Woke, of the title first. If you could go before that to the very, very top title in the center, as to, so Ms. Harnett can see what the, okay. And then if you could now go down to the part of the document that would show the date, and then go from left to right for Ms. Harnett, please, and the jury. And show which column go up above what the 29 relates to. And if you now then can proceed to the yellow line and go over to and hit the relevant categories. Thank you. So we have a 15.7. If you could now go up vertically as to what that number relates to. And can you highlight what it relates to? And if you could now go down to the, and go up above 1, just above the average, is to yellow highlight what's above the column up above average speed. Yes. Okay, if you now can go down to the respective columns at the bottom for January 29th. Do you see those two numbers, Ms. Harnett?
Yes.
Does that refresh your recollection at all about the average wind speed and gusts of wind that were occurring on January 29th of 2022?
I have no firsthand knowledge of what the wind speed specifically was in those dates.
So if we could go back to Mr. Woke, the exhibit with regard to glass on the bumper of the vehicle. So these are your observations on February 1st. And we've talked about the journey that the vehicle went on. You talked generally about the weather.
So, try and ask a question without too much.
I understand. Understood, Your Honor. Thank you. In your experience as a forensic scientist, too, is it possible for glass that is perched on a bumper to travel 60 miles and be subject to average wind speeds of 15.7 and still remain on the bumper?
Objection.
So it's sustained without a proper foundation.
Understood. Have you ever had experience with analyzing glass on any surface, an outdoor surface, and correlating that glass to weather conditions to make a determination as to the likelihood that glass could be or not be in a certain place on a certain date and time? Have you ever done that?
No.
Based upon what you know about this case, just based upon what you know, and from your role as a forensic scientist too only, do you believe that information would be relevant to your role as a forensic scientist too?
Sustained.
How did you recover the glass? What tool did you use to recover the glass on the bumper?
Tweezers.
How difficult or easy was it for you to take the glass off that bumper with, did you say tweezers?
Yes, that's correct.
How hard or easy was it for you to remove those pieces of glass with tweezers?
It was not difficult.
So it was easy.
Yes, correct.
You can take that down, Mr. Wolf. Thank you. Moving on to another category, Ms. Harnett. You testified on direct examination that you located an apparent hair on the rear right quarter panel of the vehicle, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And again, we say apparent hair for the reasons we've discussed. You didn't know at the time, so you use the word apparent, and you don't take away the apparent until testing confirms it's hair, correct?
Correct.
So the apparent hair was not sitting on the horizontal bumper, but it was on a vertical portion of the panel. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And that's the quarter panel, right?
Yes.
And that's a smooth surface, right?
Yes.
That hair wasn't secured to that panel, was it?
No.
It, in fact, wasn't secured in any way on that quarter panel, correct?
That's correct.
It wasn't taped.
No.
It wasn't glued. It wasn't stapled.
No.
It was not affixed in any way whatsoever.
No, it was not.
You found this apparent hair at the same time you found the glass pieces on the bumper, correct?
In the same general time, yes, that's correct.
When you say same general time, it was just one day you were there, correct?
Yes.
The range of time wasn't that broad, was it, correct?
No, it was not correct.
What was the range of time between finding one versus the other?
I don't know specifically. I was there for approximately 2 hours, so within that time period.
So within just 2 hours, you found the pieces of glass and the apparent hair, and within that time, you did your examination, you made your notes, all of that done within just 2 hours.
Yes, that's correct.
You remember the journey we talked about of the vehicle that you spoke about with regard to Canton, Dighton, Canton? You recall that?
Yes, I do.
So do you know whether, do you have any knowledge whether that hair was part of that journey? Do you have any knowledge?
I do not.
Do you know when the hair was deposited on the vehicle?
No.
Was it easy or hard to take off the apparent hair from that quarter panel?
It was easy. Again, I picked it up with a pair of tweezers.
Didn't give you any resistance?
No.
With Your Honor's permission, I would like us to look at a depiction of the hair. May I, Your Honor?
What exhibit number?
It is, I believe we're going to start with 144B.
Okay.
And if you could zoom in, please, Mr. Wolf, for the jury and for Ms. Harnett. Do you still have a laser pointer, Ms. Harnett?
Yes, sir.
Could you kindly use that and draw a circle around the apparent hair?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to refer to that as a J shape. Is that a fair description of it, or do you have a better description of it?
I see two ends of the hair and an arch, so I'm going to say more of like a C shape.
Okay, so you would refer to that as a C shape?
Correct.
And would that be a reverse C? Then if it's a C shape?
In that picture, it's difficult to tell if the ends are making contact or if they're coming off the vehicle, so I'm not sure.
Whatever way you would describe it, a letter or shape, because then what I'm going to do, just, it's not a trick here, but
Yeah.
I'm just going to show you another picture of it, of that hair that might be in a different location or different shape. So I want to give a contrast. So whatever term you want to use that's fair to you.
So I think it looks like a C. I can't say, I don't, it could also be like a U. I'm not sure which way the ends are facing from this perspective.
Can you once again, just so we're clear and the jury's clear, just draw a circle around it again, what
Sure.
you're talking about, and we won't give it a name,
Okay.
right? We'll just do the contrast. Right.
Okay.
So if I were to just say there looks like there might be a little hook at the top and then there's a vertical line, is that a fair description?
Yes.
Okay, so can we go with that, a little hook at the top and then a straight, or a line, that vertical line that comes down?
Sure.
And
yes.
that hook is orienting left, correct? Of the vertical line? It's to the left of the vertical line?
Yes, I do see it from this perspective to the left. That's
Okay,
correct.
very good. And that's the apparent hair.
Yes.
And you only saw or found one apparent hair, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, if we could, Mr. Wolk, now go to Exhibit 144A. And if you could zoom in on that for Ms. Harnett and the jury's benefit. Could you draw a circle now around the apparent hair? Thank you. And isn't that apparent hair now oriented almost 180 degrees the opposite, with the hook orienting right?
The photo's taken from a different angle, so do you see the hook are you talking about the hook at the top? Looks now, it appears to be on the right, but I can't, they're taken from different angles, sure.
How do you know they were taken from different angles? Did you take the picture?
No.
Are you speculating that it's taken from a different angle?
I mean, I'd have to see them side by side, but it's just the orientation of the, my marking. Can you put them up side by side?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Would it be helpful to you answer your questions? Happy to do it.
Potentially, yes. Thank you.
Mr. Wolf? Maybe we could zoom in if possible for each one so we get it. Would that be helpful? We zoom and get a side by side.
I mean, even from the overalls, I can tell that they're taken.
Let's start with the overall
Okay.
first, that you would like, and then we can. Okay. Is that where you wanted to start?
Yes, just by looking at those, to me, it looks like one is from slightly to the side of the vehicle and one is more directly head-on.
Right, so one's slightly to the side and the other's a little bit more head-on, but that's the only difference, correct? It's
Yes.
still the same from top to bottom. It's still the same from side to side. It's the same orientation, correct?
The vehicle didn't move, but the camera angle is different in both pictures. That's what I was saying in the other one. So the camera angle is different. One is the one camera angle appears for who's ever taken the photo to be standing off to the right of the vehicle. The second photo looks like it's more directly head on.
The 570 is oriented the same way in both pictures, correct? You see the 570
Yes. Yes.
on the left, and you see the 570 on the right, correct?
Yes, I do.
There's same orientation, right?
They're in the
For
same
570.
location on the vehicle, but I don't think they're at the same orientation. I think one looks.
If you could, I want to make sure you finish, but if you could just, my questions are rather narrow.
Okay.
And then if you need more time to answer them, I'm happy to do that.
So let's just ask a
Yes,
question.
thank you, Ronnie. So, isn't the 570 in each picture oriented the exact same way?
If you could just explain what you mean by oriented, I think that's where I'm confused.
They're the same, you can read the 570 horizontally. It's the same horizontal plane, correct? It's the same straight across, like one doesn't have the 570 upside down. You can read it from left to right, a 5, a 7, and a 0, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Now, if we can, Mr. Woke, now zoom in and get the largest depiction of each one from a zoom in. Are you saying the difference in how that hair appears is from a different camera angle?
No, I'm not making that conclusion. I'm just saying I can't make any other conclusion because they're from different angles. I don't feel that I can compare the two.
Is it possible that the hair moved when someone took a photograph?
Can you answer that question?
Again, I just can't make that conclusion because I didn't take the photo and the photos look like they're from different angles.
In your experience, you've taken samples many times of apparent hair, correct?
Have I taken samples
Yes.
such as that? Yes, that's correct.
Has it ever happened that when you're taking a sample, the photographer or someone breathes on it and the apparent hair moves? Does that ever happen?
I'll allow that.
I've never had firsthand experience with that, so that if somebody breathes on an item of evidence, that would be something I would note.
Other than, and is it correct that you're speculating as to what could be causing this difference? Are you speculating?
Sustained. I'd like to see counsel at sidebar for a couple of things, please.
Mr. Wolf? Your Honor, with the court's permission.
Sure,
we
you can put it
that-
back up on the screen.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience, Ms. Harnett. Do you have any explanation that you're certain of with regard to those two depictions?
Regarding what, sir? I'm sorry.
The two depictions that are up on the screen.
Do I have any explanation of what?
Of those two depictions that you're certain of.
Those are both a depiction of the same apparent hair that I collected from the vehicle.
Thank you.
All right, so turn on the lights, please. Jurors, I'm told with counsel this is a good place